Hi, good evening, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are watching from. I am honored to have been asked by the Early Childhood Development Forum to come on live today to share something that's really important to me. And I think if you are a parent or even a teacher working with or raising young children, you will find this thought-provoking and potentially have something to take away with you that you can use with young children immediately. I will share the screen to share some of my understandings and theories based on my practical experience with young children, as well as my own education. And today, my topic and the title of my topic is Rethinking Discipline for Young Children. So what I really want you to go away with this afternoon, is to understand really what children need to be socially and behaviorally successful. And it might not be what you originally thought, or it might be different to what you have been doing. Maybe some of it will be similar, and maybe you will have something that will take you away to your children this afternoon or this evening. So if you are watching live and you are on Facebook or Instagram, you can find me there. Do tag us, do tag the Early Childhood Development Forum or me, Early Years Specialist. I would love to see you on the social media platforms as well. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself before we dive into this topic. So I am an educator of young children under 6 years old, and I've been working in early childhood education and care field for 26 years this year, over 25 years actually. And in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I was actually a principal. I've been leading and establishing different kindergartens in Hong Kong. So I'm based in Hong Kong. I'm from the UK. I've worked in England as well. And at that time, when the pandemic hit, my goodness, everyone working with children or raising children suddenly had to do lots of different things. So I branched out from working within the four walls of a school and started to coach parents and teachers around learning at home, or whatever new things were being thrown at teachers in their classrooms. I do group programs and one-to-one coaching. I also work with universities and do a lot of work with new teachers and bring about understanding of young children's learning and development and play-based approaches to education in the early years. I'm currently about to be embarking on my coaching certificate for Neuro-linguistic Programming, which is a brilliant way of working with any human being, children, adults, whatever area they're in, of how to ask questions and get us thinking deeper about how we live our lives, but also how we can support children in their education too. I'm certified in parent effectiveness training by Gordon Parenting, and all of my trainings, including this tonight, I specifically will be looking at how we can positively influence children's behavior and learning, because social and emotional development is a huge part of young children's academic learning, and often it gets overlooked. And when we talk about discipline, like we will do tonight, sometimes that discipline is focused on how to get children to do the things they need to do to learn in school. So I want to rethink this evening. So we're going to tonight look at a bit of child psychology. I've got some demonstration for you. We're going to look at some communication and discipline, because communication is a big part of what I do. And I'm going to give you some practical steps to take away with you. Hopefully you can take some away this evening. So if you are involved in raising or teaching children, you're in the right place. If you want to understand how to effectively support their behavior consistently, develop their deep morals and behavior, as well as positive character traits, you're in the right place. And if you've ever felt, if you are right now or ever before felt unsure or anxious about how you're supporting children's behavior and discipline, what you're doing, and maybe you're feeling it's not working, this is the great place for you tonight. Let's start with a definition of discipline. And often when I show people this definition, they are shocked, actually. And I work with a lot of parents and families in the gentle parenting world, positive parenting world, who still use the word discipline despite the actual definition in the Oxford Dictionary. The definition is the practice of training people to obey rules and orders and punishing them if they do not. It's the controlled behavior or situation that is the result of this training. Now, if we read that on the face of it, and if you think about what you might experience when people say to you, discipline your children, it does make sense. Often people, what they mean is, come on, tell your children what they're doing wrong so they can do it right. Make sure that they are, suitably, maybe they won't use the word punished, but suitably treated so they really know what's right and wrong. Teach them what's right and wrong using firm, tactics that may include punishment. Now, we know that there are some extreme forms of punishment that might be, physical punishment, corporal punishment, which most people are moving away from now. But punishment can include sending children away to time out. I don't know if you've ever done that before. That is a punishment. It's like, nope, stop that now, go and stop what you're doing and go somewhere else. It might be kind of making threats. I don't know if you've ever had this, but I experienced recently in a playground where a child was having a tantrum. I think they didn't want to leave the playground. I don't know exactly what was happening, but the adult that was with the child said, right then, I'll leave you here. And it can sometimes just come out in the way that we're like, okay, I need to teach them a lesson here. So I'm going to show them what could happen. This is a form of punishment too. So the two words in this definition that I'm highlighting tonight, or kind of moving away from tonight, is punishment and control. We cannot control another person in the sense that we think we do. We can make them compliant out of fear or worry or anxiety, but we can't really control anyone. They are their own person, including young children. And often when we see this and talk about discipline, we are seeing our role as the disciplinarian to control behavior. I'm going to question that tonight and challenge that tonight. But what I wanted to really bring about with this definition is that it is misunderstood. People in the gentle parenting world who do not believe in punishing, and they believe in all of those things, that if you're doing these things as well, maybe you're teaching your child gently, you're helping them to understand their behavior, you're showing them the right behavior. These are all, positive ways of supporting behavior, but people who are doing that are still calling it discipline. In fact, it's not discipline, it's different. And we are going to look at what that is in a moment. So what happens is it gets misused. And then those strangers who maybe your child is running around somewhere where they're not supposed to, or a client of mine was telling me that her children were touching things in the supermarket, and one of the staff members came over and said, don't let your children touch. Can you stop them now? Can you tell them what to do? And she kind of got in trouble with that person, and there was an expectation that she was going to stop that behavior with a certain way. And I think it can be misused because people expect discipline to look a certain way. And when that happens, it leads to confusion of people that are like, oh, I don't really want to treat my child like that, but society tells me that I need to put them in line and control them. And then on the other side of that, often these things don't work. We tell our children, go and sit over there. You have to think about what you've done. And then suddenly you've got your 3-year-old running off, and your punishment or your support to behavior is gone out the window, and you're running after them and chasing them. And that can lead to low self-efficacy of our own. We suddenly feel like we're not good at that. We can't do it. As a teacher, that has happened to me many, many times when I'm in a classroom and I have children and I'm trying to discipline them and tell them what they can and can't do, and have my behavior chart. Someone's like, we used to have sunshine at the top and rainbow in the middle, and then a rain cloud at the bottom. This is really what's happened in my schools, before. And we tried to put them on the rain cloud, and then I'm feeling bad, and they're not listening anyway. So they're on the rain clouds. They've gone down the behavior chart to the lowest possible behavior area, and no one's being successful here. So I suddenly feel like I'm not good at my classroom management, or maybe you feel like you're not good at that parenting side, that side of parenting. And what happens to children is that it leads to labels, and children being told, like parents and teachers or children being told that they have behavior problems because the discipline is not working. Now, of course, that's generalizing. Every child is different. But if we move away from this focus on trying to discipline, punish, and control children, we're going to do much better for them and for ourselves. So I want to take a few minutes to give a quick summary overview of brain development. And this is going to be obviously a very simplified version of a psychology lesson. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I do teach on child development and child psychology in the university. And this helps my students to understand how we look at children's learning. So I've got two little props here. I have my cat. My little cat is, let's imagine this is the child's emotional brain. So obviously, there's lots of different parts of the brain. I'm going to split it into two. The upstairs brain, the downstairs brain, we might call it. I'm going to call the cat the emotions brain. That's the downstairs brain. And the upstairs brain, the thinking brain. Now, for children, the thinking brain is still developing. And this is something we often forget, especially as children come out of toddlerhood years and we suddenly expect them to know and be able to do everything. The thinking brain is still developing until 25 years old around. And this is really important because children spend a lot of their time in their emotions brain. And their emotions brain is not it's not the type of area of brain that helps them to forward think about what they're going to do and how they're going to behave. So imagine, so I'm going to put them together. The emotions brain is here, the children's, it's a puppet, so he's going here. The thinking brain is on top. The children easily can end up flipping their lid, we might call it, flipping off their thinking brain and going into their emotions brain. And that can be excitement as well as frustration. You might think of temper tantrums when you think of the emotions brain. Oh, they're suddenly overfilled with emotion. And frustration, but you can also be overfilled with excitement. You know, those children that just can't sit still when they're excited, or they just want to run around when they're excited, and you can't really, get to their thinking brain because it's gone. Their emotions are taken over, and this happens most of the time with children because their thinking brain is not developed yet. So I put my little props down and talk a bit more about what the thinking brain includes. So the thinking brain is what we call the executive functions, and it's the prefrontal cortex of a human brain is not developed until the early 20s, mid-20s. And these are the things that will be developing in that time. Memory, so the working memory, how they can keep their memories in those moments, in the working memory, in the moment of learning things. Self-monitoring is a big one. I don't know about you, but I'm still learning to self-monitor my own chocolate habit. I want to eat chocolate. I know I shouldn't, but I've got a big bar of chocolate. I'm going to have it anyway. Children are really at the early stages of being able to self-monitor. Planning and prioritizing, planning how they're going to behave, planning that next step. In the moment when a classmate of theirs has a toy that they want, they are in their emotions brain pretty much immediately, where they are thinking, okay, I want that toy. I feel frustrated. I can't get that toy. They are not planning, oh, how can I ask this child for the toy? How can I, maybe I'll touch their arm and say, please. They're not thinking in that way. Some children, if they're not in their emotions brain, they might be able to have some of those skills at a later date in early childhood. But most of the time, if they're in their emotions brain, they're not going to be able to plan how they behave. task initiation, starting things off, or organization. Impulse control is a huge one. Young children are learning to control their impulses, and we should actually be very understanding of that, because they are still in the developmental stage of learning how to stop themselves from doing something suddenly. And as adults in their world, support them to be able to do that. Emotional control, again, being able to know what that emotion is and be able to feel it coming and be able to control the behavior that comes from it. Just like that child who is wanting the toy, their emotional control is, they're not steady in their emotional control yet. So they are going to, have all those feelings and potentially behave in a way that we would say is not appropriate, that needs discipline. Flexible thinking, to be able to think about a different way of doing things. Children don't have these skills yet. So all of this, the reason I'm sharing this is because when we think of discipline, we're actually expecting children to be able to do all of these things, to behave in the ways that's socially acceptable, without even having the abilities in their brain development. What we want to do, so here comes the key part. This is what we want to do instead. Instead of thinking I need to control the children, I need them to learn how to do things right, and I need to do that through punishment, or through controlling them so that they can learn it and be a good social child and good at social skills. What we can do instead is focus on self-control. By focusing on children's self-control, we are supporting the development of all of those things here, all of their executive functions in their thinking brain. When we support self-control instead of try to discipline through control from us to them, we are giving back the control to the children. So let's look a bit deeper at what self-control is. Let's look at the difference. So discipline. I know maybe you may still be thinking, but wait, I want to discipline children. I don't punish children, but we saw the definition. And basically, discipline means to punish someone for doing the wrong thing. They need to do the right thing, so we punish them when they do the wrong thing. Discipline means teaching lessons, and sometimes, and I've been guilty of this in my classroom, I have gone on with the child and tried to talk with them through something that they did. And that's very common. But often what happens is we're giving them a lesson, a lecture, and it's gone mostly over their head because they don't understand all the words. Maybe they're not at that level to understand everything yet. They may be in their emotions brain and not even thinking about what you're saying. But with discipline, we're trying to teach lessons, and it doesn't work all the time, particularly for young children. And with discipline, we're trying to gain compliance, and compliance is control. And compliance means that children are not learning for themselves how to make their own decisions, how to make a decision about when to behave a certain way, when to listen to a certain person. And it's actually dangerous. There's a lot of talk about this these days, about helping children to not just comply with any adult. We want them to understand when to and when not to. So when we look at self-control instead of discipline, when we look at how we support children, we're talking about self-regulation. That's using all those executive function skills to regulate their emotions so that they can regulate their behavior. That's helping them to have coping skills for all their emotions so that when they have them, they're able to regulate their behavior. And we want them to cooperate rather than comply. Cooperation means that they have made decision based on, a lot of things, which we'll look at in a moment, but the environment, the way that they've understood the situation, the way that they have coping skills or self-regulation skills. They've made a decision to cooperate, not just comply because an adult told them to. You can see the difference in these words in the fact that discipline comes from us. Discipline is about us. whereas self-control is about the child, is about empowering the child to learn to behave and learn to be socially successful and accepted. So let's look slightly deeper at self-control, at those areas in self-control, so that then we can take away some practical things, and then you can have a look at how you're doing this in your home or in your classroom with your children. What is self-regulation then? Self-regulation is when children are able to manage their behavior and their feelings. And that comes from experiencing co-regulation. So imagine this, your child is with a child is with another child, and they're kind of bickering, they're snatching, maybe they're elbowing them out the way. They want, they're not happy in that situation with the way that the play is going, and you feel like you need to separate them, and you need one of the children to go, to time out or something like that. So you're sending them to time out, they're away, they're feeling frustrated, they're not able to control their emotions, and we've sent them away from us. At that moment, when we're disciplining a child like that, we're not helping them to regulate. We're sending them away to try and do it by themselves, but they're not able to do it yet. Instead, what we can do is bring them to us and say, okay, let's do a time in. I love this term, time in, instead of time out. When we come together, we share our emotional calmness with the child. That's what co-regulation is. So they can feel the calmness, they can experience it. Maybe there's some physical connection, like a hug or holding hands or just being close by, so that a child is not sent away to deal with it by themselves. It won't work. They won't learn how to deal with it. They'll just learn that they have to go away when they have big feelings. If they experience an adult's calmness, they are more likely to learn how to regulate their own. What we also want to be able to do to help self-regulation is to validate emotions and allow children to feel their emotions. Sometimes we might feel worried when children feel angry. Oh, I don't want them to ever feel angry. I don't like that. I just want them to feel calm and happy all the time. That's not life, though. Children need to learn how to experience their emotions. So when we validate and say, no, it's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry. We are automatically giving them some power over their own feelings and going, oh, okay, this feeling is okay. I don't really like it, but it's okay to feel that way. And this is where, I know a lot of my gentle parents, my positive parents will say that they've had this a lot. It's like, when you do this with children, they don't have any boundaries. They just do what they want. No, that's not what this is about. Children need boundaries. Children need to learn the boundaries from capable adults to be able to learn how to have self-control. So we want to provide that nurturing environment that has boundaries. We still give limits and boundaries. I'll give some examples of how you can do this in a moment. We also want to teach coping skills. For self-control, children need to be able to calm themselves down, to be able to take those moments to go, how am I going to behave, to have that self-monitoring skill, to have the impulse control. And it takes time and experience. So as more experienced people, we should be there to teach them and show them. So maybe it's through showing them how to take 10 deep breaths or 5 deep breaths. Maybe it's having a calming space where they can go. And it's not a timeout. It's more like, would you like some time to, hug your pillow? Would you like some time to sit on the soft cushions? We can go together. That's also a brilliant way of using these calming spaces. And tools, maybe it's the squishy toys or something where they can, like kind of bash a pillow or something that can help them to take out those feelings, so that they can learn that there are ways to do it without certain behaviors and then they know that they can do that next time. And when we're looking for cooperation, we want to be empowering children to make choices. So we're helping them to see the choices. And I'm not saying about just saying, make good choices. I hear this a lot in classrooms, make good choices. Remember, But it's really about showing them what happens when we make different choices and how that impacts us and what we could do next time. And this is usually, this kind of discussion and things is better to be done outside of those big emotions. But even in the moments, we can help them to be more successful. And it might just be a simple having an option for them. Would you like me to stay with you while you feel sad, or would you like to go and be in the calm corner? Would you like to hold my hand while we say go and speak to your friend about playing together, or would you like to go by yourself? So you're empowering them with the decisions of how to cooperate with the behavior that you're expecting and the boundaries that you're expecting. We want children to be successful, so setting up the environments in the first place is really important. Now, I gave an example earlier of children running around. Often, if you're in a public place, it's not really allowed to run around sometimes. If it's a park and playground, of course, hopefully. But if it's like a train station or something like that, they might not be allowed to run around. You don't want them to run off. So you don't always have flexibility about how the environment is if you're going to different places, but you can preempt it and ask, tell children, we're going to be in a large space, and I don't want to lose you. I don't want to not be able to find you. So when we go there, please hold my hand. So you're preempting it. You're giving them some kind of success, and then maybe you can ask them and say, how can we make sure we don't lose each other in the train station? And maybe you'll even, when you go in there, you say, shall we hold hands like we are, two best friend animals? What's their favorite animal? An owl? We're two best friend owls. Let's hold hands like we can't let go. We're not going to fly away from each other. Bring the playfulness to them so they can feel successful. Play. I will always go into it in all of my programs and trainings, how we can use play to help children's behavior, because it's their language and I love it. So you may be wondering, how do we bring that for ourselves? Now, I work with parents and teachers on how to bring successful communication consistently, because it's if we've not grown up with it and we've not experienced it daily for ourselves, sometimes it's hard for us to find these. So I just wanted to share a few ways that you can help self-regulation with children, and one of these is the emotional validation. So here's some words you can use. You might say, you're frustrated, and you can actually just leave it like that, but you might want to say, you're frustrated because you couldn't have that toy from the toy shop today. Or it's really hard when you really want that toy, but we couldn't get it today because we're not buying new toys today. You're showing them that you understand their feelings, but you're still having a boundary. You're always going to have the boundary after. I notice you're feeling sad about that. Or you wanted to watch that film with me tonight. It's bedtime. It's bedtime now. Maybe we can watch it another day. So you are validating their feelings before telling them what to do or the boundary. What we want to do, what we're doing there is showing them that their feelings are valid. And when children know their feelings are valid and that they've got an adult like you, a parent, a teacher that does that, that cares about that, your connection is going to be growing and deepening, which is so, so valuable for when they're older, when they're teenagers and they want, maybe they've got all sorts of problems and they come to you because they know that you understand them and you're going to validate them. Doesn't mean that all their behavior is okay, but their emotions are. Now, sometimes we are not calm, and that's just normal. We're human. So if we are not calm and we can't think of all those emotional validations to words to use in the moments, what we can do is try to give ourselves calm scripts that we just go to. I've got you. So for example, if a child is kind of really big emotions and you are getting frustrated, maybe you're in a supermarket and it's like, everyone's watching me. Instead of going, oh, you're frustrated because you couldn't buy that chocolate bar and you don't even care about the chocolate bar. You think it's so silly. Instead of trying to be validating their emotions so specifically, you can just be there for them. I've got you. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. And you can just say it over and over again. You don't have to think of all these intricate words. You're safe. You're safe. You're safe. What you're doing is still connecting, but helping yourself to calm down as well. And the nurturing environments, we want children to feel safe. If they are punished for their feelings, okay, their behavior may not be appropriate, but their behavior is reacting on a feeling. If we're punishing them for behavior that's reacting on a feeling, they're not going to feel safe. If we are never kind of helping them through those big emotions and feelings, they probably won't feel safe. We want children to feel safe so that they can build the brain development for executive function. Give chances for independence and choice so children are willing to cooperate. If we're always telling, children mostly, they hear demands all day: get dressed, brush your teeth, eat your breakfast, go to school. And, at school, they've got, line up, sit down, and it's basically, that's all they get to hear most of the time. If we give them independence as much as we can in our environment, let them be able to choose and be able to have their own way of doing self-care and choice, actually, they cooperate better overall. They feel like they have some control over their life. And that will help with the cooperation. It will help with your communication. Now, this evening, it's been quite quick. These kind of sessions go very quickly, but there is some theory here, some simple strategies you can take away today, and they are awesome little snippets of how you can support children to be cooperative. But to really get the cooperation you want from toddlers and preschoolers, we need to get our communication right, and that is difficult. Validating emotions so children can feel heard, empowered, but also setting those boundaries. And that's what I find when I work with parents, is how do you validate and set boundaries and stay calm and say all the things you need to say? And it's not, an intricate science that everyone's the same. And that's where you need that more specific practice and more specific ideas and ways to speak to your children. So I wish I had had this when I started as a teacher, a class and programs that I run for parents and teachers to learn how to use these communication strategies, and this class I'm running in March, I will be tailoring it to whoever's in the class. So you will have some practical things that you can take away immediately, scripts that you can use, you can learn, you can practice, you can do over and over again in your real life situation. So if you would like to join me, it's on the 14th of March at 8:15 Hong Kong time. It's masterclass with Q&A, so there will be interaction in this, lots of communication between all of the participants, and you can register at this QR code, or you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Early Years Specialist. The private pre-sale for anyone who's been watching live for this class ends at the end of Saturday. So in this QR code, you will find the 150 Hong Kong dollars, which is US 19 around. To join, the price will go up to 300 Hong Kong dollars after next week. So I would love to see anyone who's been watching live there, or come and join me on Instagram and Facebook, so you can learn how to gain that cooperation for children, from children after asking them to do something once. How amazing. Get them to follow your instructions after asking them once. No raised voices or punishments. Understand how you can speak to children so you have a calmer and positive interactions with them. No struggles or battles at meal times or transition times. Make your routines smoother and easier. I would love to see you in one of my programs or in my class on the 14th of March. But thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Abigail Carr, and I would love to chat with anyone who's on social media next time. Thanks, everyone.